The market on Zarnok 3 was loud and cruel. Metal cages lined both sides of the dusty street. Aliens of every kind shouted, bargained, and laughed. But in the center stage, under a broken spotlight, stood the auctioneer, a tall, blue-scaled creature with long fingers and sharp teeth. His voice echoed like a siren through the crowd. Half price for the broken one," he shouted, waving his hand at a thin, trembling girl behind him. "Only one leg, but still breath in?" The crowd laughed. Someone threw a piece of fruit at her. It hit her cheek and slid down her face. The girl didn't speak. She didn't cry. She stared down at the ground, arms around her stomach like she was holding herself together. Her skin was pale gray with old bruises and dirt. Her hair, once silver white, now hung in a tangled mess. One leg ended just above the knee. The other foot, bare and cracked, tried to keep her standing. Leaned on a wooden stick to stay upright. The auctioneer grabbed her by the arm and lifted her slightly off the ground. "She's useless, but pretty. Someone take her already. She won't last another winter." Still no one stepped forward. They wanted strong slaves. 2 legs, no scars, no weakness. Then a human moved through the crowd. He was quiet, tall. Wore a dark coat with sand still clinging to the edges. His eyes were covered by old combat goggles. A long rifle was slung across his back, and he walked with a slow, heavy step, like he'd been through more battles than he cared to count. The crowd noticed him and made space. "Human?" The auctioneer blinked, surprised. "You looking to buy?" "Surely not this one." The man didn't answer. He looked at the girl. She didn't raise her head. Her arms tightened around herself. The auctioneer grinned wide. "For you, half price. You can feed her scraps, use her for cleaning floors, maybe teach her some tricks." Still no answer. The man walked closer. The crowd grew silent. Only the wind and distant clanking chains could be heard. He stopped in front of her. Slowly the girl raised her head. Her eyes were pale blue, wide with fear and shame. She waited for him to speak, to laugh, to spit, to walk away, but he didn't. He turned to the auctioneer. "Full price," the man said. The auctioneer froze. "What? I'll pay full price, not half." The crowd gasped. "Are you mad?" the merchant asked. "She's barely alive. Could get 3 strong workers for that." The human opened a small pouch and dropped heavy coins on the table. Metal clinked loud in the silence. The auctioneer counted quickly. "This is more than." He stopped, licked his lips, and forced a smile. "Sold. All yours." The girl flinched when the auctioneer shoved her forward, nearly making her fall. The human caught her. She looked up confused. He didn't hold her tight like others had. His grip was gentle, not like a master, not like a buyer, more like someone who didn't want her to fall. He led her away slowly. She limped beside him, unsure if this was a trap or some new kind of game. She had known many masters, all of them cruel, all of them liars. Behind them, the auctioneer laughed again. Foolish human, throwing money at broken things. But the man didn't look back. Outside the market, they reached a small, dusty vehicle. The human opened the back and helped her in. He gave her a water flask and a soft, folded blanket. She stared at it, then at him. "Why?" she whispered, her voice dry and weak. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat beside her, took off his goggles, and placed something on her lap. A small, folded photo. She opened it. It showed a girl, human, with one leg missing. She was smiling, sitting on a porch, with a prosthetic beside her and a dog curled up at her feet. "She was my sister," he said quietly. The alien girl looked at him. For the first time, his eyes looked tired. Deep lines of pain ran across his face. He turned the engine on. "You're not trash," he said. "It just never looked close enough." The vehicle drove off, leaving the laughter behind in the dust. The girl held the photo in shaking hands. She looked out the window, and for the first time in years, the fear in her chest started to feel different. Like maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Asterisk, the room was quiet too. Quiet for her. She sat on the edge of a soft bed, her fingers digging into the blanket like it might vanish. For the first time in years, there were no chains on her ankles, no metal collar around her neck, no barking voice screaming orders. And still, she couldn't move. The human man had left the door open. That was the first thing she noticed. Open wide, unlocked, unguarded. She had no idea what that meant. Was it a test? A trap? Her mind raced with memories, punishments for speaking out of turn, beatings for limping too slow. She had learned to survive by silence, stillness, and obedience. But here there was no master shouting, no food thrown on the floor, no eyes watching her like a thing, just a soft bed, clean air, a warm room filled with strange human objects, books, photos, a dusty jacket hanging by the wall, and outside the door. Somewhere in the small house, the human walked quietly, letting her be. Hours passed, maybe more. She didn't know. Then, a soft knock on the side wall, not the door. Just a tap. He stood there, holding a bowl. "I made something," he said, voice low. "It's not much." She stared at him. She didn't move. He didn't step forward. Didn't force her. Just placed the bowl on a small table near the door and walked away. Steam rose from the bowl. The smell was strange, not bad, just unfamiliar. She waited again. Maybe it was poisoned. Maybe it was meant to weaken her further. But her stomach hurt. Not from sickness, but hunger, real hunger. So with one slow breath, she slid from the bed. Her prosthetic leg wasn't on yet. She crawled. Reaching the bowl, she dipped her fingers in first. Warm, smooth, she tasted. Her hands shook, not from pain this time, but because she hadn't tasted kindness in so long. Later that night, she woke from a nightmare. Breath was loud. Sweat covered her skin. She looked around, confused. No cage. She forced herself up and reached for the wall, remembering the leg. It sat beside the bed. Not locked, not taken. Note rested beside it. "I fixed the straps, should be easier now. Try in the morning." She blinked. Her throat tightened. He'd adjusted it. For her. Without asking anything, in the morning, she opened the door. He was outside, sitting on a small chair, drinking something hot. He looked up. Surprised, maybe even proud. "You're up," he said. She nodded, holding the wall. "I want to try." He stood. "Take your time." She placed the prosthetic leg. Her fingers fumbled with the straps. He didn't help. He waited, gave her space. Then holding a small rail he'd built beside the porch, she stood. Wobbly. Weak, but she stood, and then she took one step. She fell. Hard. Pain hit her shoulder. Her face burned. She expected to be yelled at, pulled by the arm, but instead he was there, down on one knee, beside her. He didn't grab her. He didn't shout. "You all right?" he asked. She looked away, shame filling her chest. "I'm useless." He didn't argue. He simply placed one hand gently over hers. "You're healing." For the next hour, they worked together. Step, fall, try again. She cursed in her own tongue once. He smiled. That's the spirit. She didn't know why, but his words felt light. Not heavy like the others. Not cruel. He sat back and let her walk 5 full steps across the porch. It felt like flying. Later that day, as the sun set in a red sky, she looked at him. "You didn't chain the door," she said. He nodded. "I never will. But what if I ran?" He looked her straight in the eyes. "I wouldn't blame you." She didn't understand. No one ever gave her choices. "Why did you buy me?" She asked again, like it still haunted her. The man was quiet for a while. Then he said, "Because I was bought once too, not with money, with orders, war, and lies. Broke free, barely, when I saw you. I knew I couldn't leave you behind." She looked down, her hand clenching. "No one's ever said something like that to me." You'll hear more, he said, standing up, if you choose to stay. When inside, she stood in the doorway, eyes watching the night sky. Her heart still feared, but her soul, it felt something strange. Not freedom, not yet, but maybe hope. The wind on Zarnak 3 changed with the seasons. It was colder now. Sharper, like it carried stories from the old wars and whispered them through the cracked windows of forgotten houses. Inside one of those houses, she stood in silence, eyes locked on her reflection in a dusty mirror. The girl barely recognized herself. Her face was still thin, and her eyes still carried old pain. But something else had begun to grow their strength. She fastened the straps of her mechanical leg. It was still hard, pinched sometimes, but each morning she did it a little faster, a little better. Today she wanted to walk, not just 5 steps, not across the porch. She wanted to walk outside, to feel the ground under both feet, even if one was made of metal. He waited by the door, watching her quietly. You sure? He asked. She nodded. Yes. I need to. He smiled, picked up a walking stick he'd carved for her, and handed it over. It's not fancy, but strong. She took it. The wood was smooth, real. It reminded her of old trees from her childhood, the ones she used to climb before the soldiers came. He opened the door. Sunlight spilled in, golden and warm. Outside lay a narrow path, dry soil, broken stone, and weeds. It wasn't much, but to her it looked like the edge of a new world. She stepped out. Her first step was slow, unsure. Her second was better. By the 5th, the stick wobbled, and she almost fell, but she didn't. And then she walked. They moved together, not side by side, but never far. She didn't want help. He didn't offer unless asked. That was his way, always near, but never controlling. Birds circled high above. Old machines rusted in the distance, swallowed by vines. The path curved past a broken wall, then opened into what had once been a garden. The soil here was soft. Flowers had started to grow small, strange ones. Not from this planet. Human seeds, maybe. She paused beside them, breathing heavily. He stopped too. You planted these? She asked. He nodded. Didn't think they'd live. Guess I was wrong. She looked at the tiny blossoms. One was bent, petals curled strangely. Even the broken ones try, she whispered. He said nothing, but the look in his eyes told her he understood. They sat under a bent metal arch. The girl rested, her legs sore but proud. She pulled out something from her pocket. The folded photo he'd once given her. The human girl in the picture, the one with one leg, still smiled at her from the past. She was strong, wasn't she? The alien girl asked. He nodded. Braver than me. She looked up. What happened to her? He was quiet for a long time. Then finally said the war took her. Not with a weapon, but with loneliness. The girl blinked. What do you mean? She survived the blasts, the hunger, the fear. But when I got back, she wasn't smiling anymore. No one saw her worth. No one stayed. She felt a cold stab in her chest. That's why you helped. Me. He looked straight at her. You reminded me of her, but you're not her. You're still here, still walking. She lowered her head, overwhelmed. I don't know who I am anymore, she said. You will, he replied, piece by piece. On the way back, her steps were slower. Her body ached. But the pain was different now. Not like the pain of chains. This was pain from effort. From moving forward, they reached the house again. She sat. On the porch, breathing hard, sweat on her brow. He poured water into a cup and handed it to her. She drank it slowly, then looked at him. Do I owe you now? He shook his head. You owe no one. Then why? She whispered. Why do you keep helping me? He leaned back, stared at the sky, and answered with a strange calm in his voice. Because the universe breaks too many things. Someone's got to learn how to fix them. That night, she didn't have nightmares. She dreamed of walking across bridges made of light, across mountains no one else had climbed. And in the dream, she didn't limp. She ran. The fire in the small metal stove crackled quietly. Outside, the wind howled across the wastelands, kicking dust against the windows. But inside the little house, it was warm, almost peaceful. She lay curled on her blanket, one hand resting over her mechanical leg, her mind drifting between sleep and thought. Her body still hurt from the walk earlier, but the pain no longer frightened her. It reminded her she was healing. Then, in the middle of the night, she heard it, a sound that did not belong to her. A low, shaking breath. Then another. She sat up. From the other room came a soft thud, like something had fallen, followed by a whisper. A name. Not hers. She stepped quietly toward the door and peeked through the crack. The human was on the floor, sweating, his chest rising fast. He clutched the side of his head like he was trapped inside something no one could see. He gasped, eyes wide. Not fully awake. No, not her. Not again. His voice broke. She had seen terror in many eyes. Soldiers, slavers, screaming prisoners. But this was something else. He wasn't afraid of her. He was afraid of memory. She stepped into the room, unsure. "Are you awake?" she whispered. He didn't answer. She moved closer. Slowly he flinched, then looked up. His eyes were wet, red, lost. "I'm sorry," he said, voice rough. "You shouldn't see me like this." She shook her head. "You always let me be real. Let me do the same." He looked away. His hands trembled. "I see faces when I sleep," he said. "People I couldn't save. People I had to leave behind." She sat beside him, her back against the wall. "I know that feeling," she said quietly. "I used to scream at night too. But my owners beat me for it. I'm not them," he said at once. "No," she replied. They sat in silence. Not awkward, just heavy. She looked around the room. Simple things filled the space. A book half-read, a metal box of tools, small photo of a squad in human armor, younger versions of men now gone. "You fought in the war?" she asked. "Too long," he said. "We were told we were the heroes. After the fighting, they tossed us aside. No one clapped for the broken ones." She looked at his arm. Scar ran from elbow to wrist. She had never noticed it before. "I thought only slaves were thrown away," she said softly. He chuckled, bitter and hollow. "Sometimes soldiers are slaves too. Just don't get collars." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of stone. Smooth, oval, pale green. "I used to keep this hidden," she said. "It came from my village, before everything burned. I used to believe it was lucky." He took it gently from her. Hand examined it under the low light. "Still believe in luck?" She shook her head. "I believe in choices now. And you gave me one." He looked up at her. "So I'm giving you one too," she added. "If you ever want to talk, I'll listen." He said nothing, but something in his shoulders relaxed. For the first time, didn't look like a man guarding himself. It looked like someone beginning to let go. In the morning, she cooked. It wasn't perfect, she had never learned properly, but it was warm and real. He ate in silence, then smiled a little. "Tastes like hope." She raised an eyebrow. "Tastes like overcooked roots to me." They both laughed. It was the first time she had heard herself laugh in years, and his laugh. It wasn't forced or tired. It was alive. Later she stepped outside. Breathing in the cold air, she thought about all the places she had been. The cages, the cruelty, the emptiness. And now, this a broken house in the middle of nowhere. Shared with a broken man who didn't treat her like a slave, but like something worth saving. No, not saving, healing. And not just her. He was healing. That night, they sat by the fire again. No stories. No questions. Just a shared silence that felt like trust. Her head rested gently on his shoulder. He didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't run. And for the first time since the day she lost everything, she didn't feel alone. The sky turned gray by noon, not from clouds, from ships. Small. Silent and fast, they appeared above the wastelands like shadows with purpose. No flashing lights, no open weapons. but their shape alone brought fear. The girl froze as soon as she saw them. She had seen those ships before during raids, auctions, and slave hunts. Her blood turned cold. She backed away from the window and turned to the human. They found me. Didn't ask who. He didn't ask how. He just nodded once and stood. Pack the bag, he said, the one under the bed. She rushed to do it, hand shaking. The bag was already half full. Food rations, spare water, a short blade, and tools. As if he had always known this day would come, she stuffed her photo inside. Then her stone, then stopped. She turned to him. I'll run. Alone. They want me, not you. He shook his head. You're not running anywhere alone, but they'll kill you. They'll try. His voice was calm, but there was steel under the words. The first drone landed on the outer hill. It didn't make a sound, just hovered. Scanning the house, then a voice cracked through the air like broken glass. Return of property demanded. Genetic mark confirmed. Violation of slave code. You have 10 minutes to comply. The girl stepped back. I didn't think they'd come this far. They don't give up on things they think they own, he muttered, loading his old rifle. She touched her neck. Just beneath the skin, a tiny dot glowed faintly. The ownership mark one she thought had faded. It's still active, she whispered. Know how to burn it out, he said, but we don't have time now. A second ship landed closer. Figures stepped out, tall, armored, masks on their faces. 3 enforcers, not slavers. Not guards, collectors. They were faster, colder, no voices. It's just action. The human stepped onto the porch. Rifle in hand, the girl stood behind him, but her knees felt weak. She knew what came next. Pain, chains, screaming, but then something different happened. The lead collector held up a stun rod and pointed at her. She is marked. Return her now. You have violated merchant law. The human didn't move. His eyes were locked. He forgot one thing, he said. The collector tilted its head. She's not property anymore. And then he fired. The sound ripped through the air like thunder. One collector dropped instantly. The others charged. Forward, she screamed. The human moved like a machine, fast, trained, precise. Years of war didn't leave him. They lived inside his hands. But he wasn't young anymore. One collector stabbed into his shoulder.
Ow.
Blood spilled down his sleeve. The girl grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and swung hard, hit the mask. The second collector staggered. She swung again. And again. She didn't stop until it stopped moving. The fight was short, brutal, and silent. Once it ended, the girl dropped the pipe, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. The human leaned against the wall, blood dripping down his side.
At your
Hurt, she whispered. He gave a weak smile. First time today. That's not funny. He grinned anyway. They pulled the masks off the collectors. They weren't fully alien. They were modified half-machine, half-organic, tracked connected, which meant someone else now knew. She looked at him. They'll send more. He nodded. We have 2 options. Run or burn the signal at the root. She frowned. He opened a drawer and pulled out something strange, a small human-made tool with wires and heat coils. We dig the tracker out, then destroy the beacon they use. To follow you? Her heart raced. It'll hurt, won't it? He looked her in the eyes. Yes, but after that you'll never be hunted again. That night she lay on the table. He held her hand. The tool buzzed to life. No chains, she whispered, clenching her teeth. No chains, he promised. And then the burning began. She didn't scream, not because it didn't hurt, but because she refused to. The pain was sharp, deep, like someone was pulling her. Soul through her skin, but she held on. She remembered. The cage, the cold auctions, the laughter of those who thought. She had no worth, and now this. A man who bled for her, fought for her, stood for her. She could survive this, and she did. When it was over, Mark was gone, crushed under metal. The girl rested with a soaked cloth on her forehead, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. You still with me? He asked. Always, she said. Then she smiled, just slightly. I'm free now. He nodded. Double quotes. No, he whispered. You were free the moment you stopped believing their lies. Asterisk, the lights of the slave market still flickered like before. The same dust floated in the air. The same auction block stood under that crooked pole of rusted metal. But this time, she wasn't in chains. She walked. Her mechanical leg clanked softly with each step. Her back was straight. Her chin was high, and her eyes no longer afraid. The market hadn't changed, but she had. The human walked beside her, his arm still bandaged from the last fight. He kept his coat closed, but underneath it were weapons, hidden, quiet, and deadly. The plan was dangerous, but simple. They were going to end the auction, the whole system, and they were starting here. Where her nightmare began, they arrived just as the auctioneer shouted into the crowd. Strong backs today. Miners, scarred warriors. Step right up by now, or miss out. His voice was the same, arrogant, loud, rotten. He didn't see her yet, didn't recognize the girl, once called half-price trash. She moved to the edge of the platform right in front of him. Someone in the crowd noticed her. A whisper ran through the buyers. Some backed away confused. The auctioneer looked at her and laughed. You again? You should have died by now. Still dragging that tin leg around, I see. She didn't answer. She just climbed up onto the auction block herself. The crowd gasped. Auctioneer frowned. What do you think you're doing? She looked at him. Not as a slave, not as a victim, but as something more. I'm taking it back. He blinked. Taking what? My voice. She turned to the crowd. You laughed at me. All of you. You paid for broken bodies and bruised faces and thought you were strong. Silence fell over the market. But I lived, she continued. And I remember every name, every price tag, every hand that pushed me down. She pointed to the auctioneer. He sold me like I was nothing. I'm here to show you what nothing can become. The human stepped up behind her. He reached into his coat and pulled out a recording cube. Old tech, but powerful. He activated it. The small blue light blinked to life. He spoke calmly. This is live now, broadcasting every word, every face sent off-world. Sent to human colonies, allied planets, peace tribunals. Say hello to justice. The crowd panicked. Some tried to run. Others hid their faces. The auctioneer stammered, This is illegal. The girl laughed, a sharp, beautiful sound. So was selling people. Guards rushed in. 4 of them armed, tall, trained to break rebellions. The human stepped forward. He didn't raise his weapon. He raised his hand, and behind him, 6 more humans appeared. Refugees, ex-soldiers, others like her former. Slaves. Now free, they had followed them in silence, waiting, watching. Now they surrounded the platform, weapons ready. Eyes full of fire. The auctioneer screamed, You'll never shut this down. You're 1 broken girl and 1 wounded human. You think that's enough? She turned to him slowly. No, she said. We're enough. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the last tool he ever gave her, a tiny human device with a red button. She pressed it. The explosion didn't come from the front. It came from the back, deep beneath the market, the cages, the tunnels, the records, gone. The auctioneer fell to his knees. Years of trade, of torture, of cruelty turned to ash. He looked up at her. What now? She knelt down, looked him straight in the eye. Now you'll learn what it feels. Like to be nothing? They didn't kill him. They left him there on his own platform, with all eyes watching. But no one stepped up to buy him. No one wanted what he became. Just like no one wanted her once. Outside the market, the girl walked into the sunlight, surrounded by others who had followed her lead. Some limped, some cried, but all of them, free. The human stood beside her. You could have killed him, he said softly. I know, she replied. But then I'd become like them. He nodded, proud. You're more than they ever deserved to understand. She looked at the horizon. No more chains, she whispered. And he answered, "No more auctions." The market was gone now, not just burned or broken, gone in every way that mattered. The cages had been pulled down. The auction block had turned to ash. The signs, the prices, the shouting, all of it vanished like a bad dream finally fading. At sunrise, but the memory still lived in her bones. She stood in the middle of what used to be her prison and let the wind brush through her silver hair. The same wind that once carried the smell of fear now felt clean, even warm. Behind her, the human tightened the straps on his gear. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. But her eyes stayed fixed on the open field where the last cage had stood. "I never thought I'd come back here and leave standing," she said. "You didn't just stand," he said. "You stood tall." They traveled. For days after that, word had spread fast. More freed slaves had come out of hiding. Some walked, some crawled. Some still wore broken collars around their necks. But all of them followed her, not because she was stronger than them, but because she reminded them they could still be whole. One morning, the girl found herself in front of an old government outpost. It used to be a mining checkpoint. Now, it sat empty, sand-covered, and silent. She walked through the cracked doorway and turned slowly. "This place?" she said. "It's nothing. But maybe it can become something." He raised an eyebrow. "It's like what, a home?" With help from others, they began to rebuild. They cleared rooms, built beds, painted walls, people brought tools, blankets, old books, even laughter, and slowly, the outpost began to change. It became something real, a refuge. One day, while she taught a child how to use a walking stick, a message arrived. She read it in silence, her eyes narrowing. He watched her from across the room. Bad news. Shook her head. Whole news. She held up the chip. It had the auctioneer's symbol burned into its side. "He escaped trial," she said. He looked down, not surprised. "But he's poor now, sick, wandering between cities, begging for credits." He looked back at her. "Do you want to finish it?" She thought for a moment, then shook her head again. "He already lost the one thing they never let us keep." "What's that? Dignity?" That night, she sat beside the fire. Children laughed nearby. The stars blinked above them, the human joined her, holding 2 cups of warm broth. She took hers with a soft smile. "You know," she said, "I used to believe I'd die in a cage." He looked into the flames. "Me too. Mine just didn't have bars." She turned toward him. "You could have left me at that auction." He didn't answer. "You could have bought someone stronger, someone who could run." Still no answer. "So," she leaned closer. "Why me?" Finally he looked at her. "Because when I saw you, I didn't see a slave." She blinked. "What did you see?" "A fighter," he said, "even if you couldn't see it yet." Her breath caught in her throat. Small alien girl, barely 6, ran up and tugged her sleeve. "Miss," the child asked, "are you really the one they tried to sell?" She smiled gently. "Yes," she said. "They tried, but they couldn't." "No," she replied, standing up. "Because you can't sell something that remembers its worth." The little girl nodded, wide-eyed. "Then I won't let anyone sell me either," she said proudly. The woman knelt beside her. "And if they try," she said, "you tell them you're not for sale." Later that night, as everyone slept, she stood on the rooftop of the outpost. The stars above her were the same ones that once watched her cry in chains. Now they watched her lead. She felt the human step beside her. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. She slipped her hand into his, not like a slave seeking safety, but like an equal. Walking forward into the unknown, together, the wind picked up. She closed her eyes and smiled. She had no chains, no collar, no number, only a name, a real one. And though the galaxy was still full of cruelty, pain, and shadows, she knew one truth would never change again. She was not for sale, and never would be again.